Which players are we avoiding in drafts this season? Let's find out. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, March.
Oh, I gotta put this. I gotta plug this in so you guys can more clearly hear me. Because if you can't hear me, how can you learn? Take these off. Useless. And move this closer. And we'll get started. Hey peeps. Bad Mamba Jambas. Yeah, nice shades. Nice shades. I just spilled water everywhere. So there was good news. Hey Barry. There was good news, I understand, that the lawyer, I don't know if it was Richard or if it was Rosa or both, but I guess the judge ordered a recount. Recount the votes. Hey Pete Panagiatis, how are you? How's it hanging? Not much up, and not much up in our stock. Let me look. Yep. I have to congratulate Kurt Kramer. He's good. He's good at what he does. He's gotten the stock down almost $1 from last week. Now he might be helped by some of his corrupt friends and by Alpine, but he's good. They've been able to walk the stock down without owning any shares to sell. Somebody told me last night that maybe there's shares overseas to sell. There are no shares overseas to sell. That's the beauty of GTII, is we know who owns the shares and we know who the short is. But for the sake of the argument, maybe there's shares overseas to sell. But I give great credit to Kurt Kramer. The stock was clearly ahead of itself at 234, and now it's 142. I guess that's a better price for all of you guys to buy, if you're so inclined. We just got to thank Kurt Kramer from keeping us from getting overly excited. We get a chance to buy more and more and more, and maybe we should look up and see what that website actually tells us. Well, Fritz Flappy Ears, I don't know if they've done that, but there's one guy involved that owns 4 million shares of GTII, which I didn't realize. I don't know how he got them, but it would be a great idea, Fritz, for Kurt Kramer to go long the stock as a hedge against what probably are going to be losses. Now, I just want to look up a website. This website that I've referred to you, OTC Short Report, it gives you let's pick a stock that's pick a stock which is not, trying to think of one of the ones you have discussed with me. Hell's Bells, HLBZ. No information. Okay, so I've got to think of another one. I want a neutral stock. A neutral stock which, let's see. How can I be so dim-witted? I can't think of any. How about all right, so let me go to I can't think of a stock symbol we haven't talked about. So let me think if I DECPF. DECPF. Let's see if this works. DECPF. Okay. Here's a stock. I'm not recommending buying it. Don't get all excited. It's just a different stock than any we've. This is the short volume for DECPF, and it says short volume report. Regs show all regs show data reported by FINRA. So let's find out if there's any information about this website on the website, and there doesn't seem to be. Okay, here's about. Okay, so this is about us. OTCshortreport.com was put together for one reason: to track the true volume and display in a coherent fashion the daily short positions of over-the-counter stocks. Short positions for over-the-counter OTC stocks are hard to come by. At OTCshortreport.com, we make digesting the information easy to understand and add a valuable charting and historing data piece. This saves you time, and most importantly, it's all free. We hope to help investors with an understanding of what is really happening with your OTC investments. Believe it or not, most CEOs are not even aware that they are the victim of manipulative short selling. We always look forward to comments and suggestions. If there are any features you would like to see or anything we can help with making your experience a better one, please do not hesitate to contact us. OTCshortreport.com. Okay, so that's the website. Now let's go to FINRA. Let's say FINRA short data. Let's see what they say about that. Okay, at FINRA, here's FINRA. FINRA, see it? Short interest reporting. FINRA requires firms to report short interest positions in all customer and proprietary accounts in all equity securities twice a month. All short interest positions must be reported by 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the second business day after the reporting settlement date designated by FINRA. So in April, it's going to be Tuesday, it looks like. Or I guess it says April 4 through 6th. All right, so that didn't help very much. Let me see what else it says. Okay. Here's another page. See FINRA? Equity short interest. FINRA publishes the short interest reports it collects from member firms for all exchange-listed and over-the-counter securities. FINRA Rule 4560 requires FINRA members to report their short positions in all over-the-counter equity securities to FINRA twice a month. FINRA publishes the short interest reports it collects from member firms to help investors gauge the market sentiment surrounding a security or exchange. All right, so let's go back. That doesn't help. I want to see what data they're providing daily. There it is. Daily short sale volume files. Okay, again, I'm reading from FINRA, daily short sale volume files. The daily short sale volume files provide aggregated volume by security for all short sale trades executed and reported to a TRF, the ADF, or the ORF. You got me. During normal market hours for public dissemination purposes. There are individual files for the volume associated with trades reported to each TRF, FINRA, NASDAQ Chicago, FINRA, NASDAQ Carteret, FINRA, NYSE, the ADF, and the ORF. There is also a file which is consolidated. This combines the volumes for trades in exchange-listed securities reported to the TRFs and the ADF. FINRA posts the daily short sale volume files to this no later than 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the same day of the relevant trade date. Please note, in rare instances, FINRA may need to update a file on a subsequent day. FINRA will reflect both the original and updated files on this page and will identify the updated file as updated. Given the low volume of trades reported to the ADF, those files may or may not contain data on any given day. Well, it says call FINRA Support Center. I think I won't do that while you're on here, but that's what it says. So they put up the data. Now, this OTC short report data for GTII, I've been told, is completely inaccurate. I don't know why, but it looks like FINRA updates all the data it says it collects everywhere every day. Yesterday, on April 4th, for GTII, the volume was 845,000 shares. The short volume, 462,000 shares. Now, the volume, I know, because we've been watching GTII, is all fraudulent. It's crossing, it's stock manipulated out of thin air. But let's say that's real. I've been told this short interest volume is completely inaccurate. It doesn't take into account that GTII may have been traded offshore. There may be pools of GTII stock that are held offshore. There may be positions, large positions of GTII in your accounts that have been borrowed against. So I want you to all realize that I've been told by a really knowledgeable and high-up gentleman at the American Stock Exchange, when that existed, that all this data is completely untrustworthy. You cannot trust this data. The short volume does not reflect what the criminals do in Germany, in Panama, in the rest of the world. So I guess that means that yesterday there were 462,000 shares reported as short, 54% of a fake volume. The day before, there was 492,000 shares reported as short volume by FINRA. 43% of the volume traded, the supposed volume in GTII. The day before that, 565,000, 62%. Day before that, 477,000, 44%. Day before that, 939,000, 55%. The day before that, 446,000, 57%. The day before that, 429,000, 66%. The day before that, 795,000, 54%. And going to the 10th day before that, 795,905, 54%, the 10th calendar day before that. So you can see all this on the OTC short data. It's provided by FINRA, but it's all unreliable, and it's all questionable, according to a gentleman whose opinion I trust. So I don't know what we do. I guess we know that Kurt Kramer did a toxic convertible financing for shares, and I don't have time to do it right now, but maybe for the next time I can. We can locate how many shares were put at the transfer agent to honor his ongoing counterfeiting of shares, his unregistered security dealing, his market maker manipulation, his security fraud. And when we have data provided by FINRA, we can't trust it. Therefore, we have to assume that Kurt Kramer was doing honorable things, for he is an honorable man. So this data that FINRA puts out, I guess, is just, I don't know where they get it from. What it does not include is shares that are held overseas and sold, which in this case I think don't exist, but we don't see what's happening on this data apparently in behind closed doors. We don't see what shares he bought back. Well, I would argue, since we've been following the stock daily for 2.5 years, we pretty well do see that he hasn't bought anything back. All they're doing is crossing shares, but technically this data does not reflect. It only shows the short volume on the exchanges, and if they bought back shares somehow surreptitiously in a North Korean stock exchange, we don't know about it. So on average here, just looking down the page, for the last 30 days, there was a low on March 7th of 26% of the so-called volume being shorted, and a high of 68%. But the average and the preponderance of trades are over 50% of the volume is short. And to read at the top, short volume report, Reg Show, all Reg Show dated, reported by FINRA. I guess that's a typo. It probably should say data. Reported by FINRA. So even the very reporting systems are opaque, and all of the advantages accrue to the criminals. Let me be clear. Kurt Kramer, Seth Kramer, Charlie Mayo, their boiler room, in my judgment, are all criminals. Let me be more clear. Alpine Brokerage, John Hurry, all of their associates, in my judgment, are criminals. Let me be further clear. Everything that goes on in the stock trading on GTII is done by criminals. It's securities fraud writ large, and I believe there is a massive naked short position, if you want to call it that, counterfeiting of shares in GTII. I know who owns the shares pretty much, and I know they have GTC orders out, and you should as well, because then your brokerage firm cannot lend out the shares. And these kind of volumes, it's not you selling, it's not me selling, and it's not the whales selling. So I'm being told to distrust this data. So where does that leave me? I can't rely on this data. I can't rely on FINRA. So what can I rely on? Just a vague assurance that we can't really know what's going on in the dark pools and offshore, and we don't really know what stock is being bought by the criminals? There is nothing in Kurt Kramer's trading history that shows he has ever bought back. I don't think he has a buy button. When he orders a Quotron, he tells the factory to take the buy button off. That's my judgment. So until there's another source of data, I only have this data it comes from FINRA. But it's aggregated by OTC short report, and I've been told we can't trust that data. So if we go to a company like LGIQ, yesterday the volume in LGIQ was 24,000 shares. The short volume was 12,965. 52% of the volume was shorted, according to OTC short report on FINRA data. But we can't trust that. We have to assume that those shares were bought back in dark pools or in arrangements amongst the market makers or the 4 players out of Canada. We can't trust that data. So I've been told the data from OTC short report is totally unreliable. So I don't know where it leaves us. Gary Gensler won't look into over-the-counter stocks. I put up on my Twitter, but very interestingly, there's a woman on Twitter who's really good, I think. Let me just see. There's a guy that I follow now, Patrick Byrne. Now, I don't think is predisposed to be Republican, but for those of you who think the former president was treated fairly and you're a Democrat, I don't know what to tell you. I guess you only read the headlines that says 35 felonies. You go, oh my God, he's terrible. But Hillary Clinton had a private server with government data on it. If my father had done that, he'd be in jail. But she put a private server in her house. That, my friends, is against the law. Now, the media says no. I mean, she's just a woman. Don't pick on her. And trust her. She's a Democrat. She's got your interest in heart. No, guys and girls. It's not good. But anyway, to get off the politics, Patrick Byrne put up, problem is I'm bringing up politics because he's pretty much anti what's happened to Trump, and that's going to maybe upset people. Let me see if I can find it. Avid is talking to Patrick Byrne on Twitter. Okay, here it is. No, it's a different woman, and she's very good. I like her very much. I follow her, Genevieve Roch-Dechter. But she posted Goldman Sachs was fined $3 million for quote unquote mistakenly marking short sales as longs. As you see, the banking system is eminently honest, and for us to question numbers and to question what the short sellers are doing is wrong. The banking system has been designed with fail-safes and with systems to protect you so that the big bankers would never short mark sales as longs when they're really short. They might make a mistake. Oh, don't get me wrong. I mean, to err is human. So over a period of 3 years, Goldman Sachs mistakenly, over a period of 3 years, mistakenly shorted millions of shares while short sale circuit breakers were in effect by marking the sales as long. It was a mistake, though. Come on, don't pick. I mean, come on. Goldman's there to help you. And by the way, all the data that FINRA collects on those sales is inaccurate because Goldman would never screw you, ever. And the data just doesn't take into account what's happening overseas, what Goldman's doing behind the scenes on your behalf. So don't trust the data that says that Goldman or Kurt Kramer are criminals. Goldman's not a criminal. Anyway, Patrick Byrne came back 6 hours ago. At the core of the business model of Goldman Sachs is a crime. It creates 75% of their prime brokerage revenue. And every several years when they get caught, they pay a tiny parking ticket. But I emphasize, you can't trust Patrick Byrne, you can't trust me, you can't trust the FINRA data. Wall Street is there to protect you. And what they're doing, they're allowed, this took 3 years to find, but hey, Goldman Sachs, they're just some guys out of Wall Street trying to provide a living to their family. And 3 years. But imagine the things that Goldman was able to provide for you. They were able to take mortgages, combine them in CDOs, chop them up, rate them AAA even if they were crap, and they're able to sell them on to German funds, even if they were crap. That helped you buy an overinflated priced house. So don't pick on Goldman Sachs. Do not pick on Goldman Sachs. And do not think that the market doesn't have in place systems that offset these terrible short. I mean, look, they sold the article is Goldman Sachs fined $3 million by FINRA on April 4th. New York-based Goldman Sachs was censored and will pay $3 million for mismarking about 60 million short sale orders as long and for failing to maintain a reasonable supervisory system. Because of the inaccurate categorization, 12,335 of the executed orders were at or below national best bid. But hey, don't believe this data. Don't believe the data that FINRA collects. It does not take into account what Goldman did on the other side of these trades. And they did it with your best interest. They didn't do it to profit themselves. They did it to help you. And the system is honest. For these are honorable men. Let's go find that. Let's go find that article. Because you cannot at any time question the integrity or the honesty these rapacious thieves from Wall Street. They dress better than you. In many cases, they have better educations than you do. Their daughters are going to better schools than you do. They live in gated communities, and when the weather gets hot, they can fly to Banff and ski, or they can, when the weather gets cold, they can go down to Florida. But these are exalted men and women. They are not to be questioned. And do not ever think that if you catch them red-handed, that your data is correct. You have to assume that the systems are not accurately reflecting what these honest men, because they're all honorable men, are doing on your behalf to protect you. Now, sure, once in a while, hey, what did I know? I was busy. My wife wanted me to look out after some of her family. I was taking my daughter to school. How could I follow this? Well, it went on for 3 years. Well, I don't know. It was a busy 3 years. I couldn't see it. And the canard. Our computers can't keep up with the hedge fund computers. Oh, come on. All right, so Compliance Week. Regulatory enforcement. Compliance Week. Goldman Sachs fined $3 million by FINRA over mismarked short sales. Goldman Sachs was fined $3 million by the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, for mismarking nearly 60 million short sell orders as long and related supervision failures. The firm further agreed to be censored as part of FINRA's disciplinary action published Tuesday. Goldman Sachs neither admitted, it's just like Kurt Kramer, nor denied the self-regulatory agency's findings, an agency run by Goldman Sachs. The details from 2015-2018, Goldman, that's from 2015 to 2018. You're the ones that are crazy. The data you collect, the questions you give make you crazy, not Goldman Sachs. Hey, listen to this. From 2015 to 18, Goldman Sachs automated trading software mismarked sell orders following a system upgrade intended to simplify order flow. Oh, hey, it was our computers. We didn't do it. Goldman inadvertently, come on, you guys cannot question Goldman, for these are honorable men. You're the ones that are Looney Tunes. Goldman inadvertently failed to include a single line of code. Hey, we failed it. I'm too busy to look. It went on and on. But how are we to know? We're busy men. We're honorable men. Don't question our integrity. It's just a mistake. Goldman inadvertently failed to include a single line of code that was designed to copy the long or short mark from a parent sell order and affix it to the instantaneously created child sell orders that were routed to the market, FINRA, a mouthpiece for Goldman, explained. While the parent orders were accurately marked as short sales and a locate was attained for each. Bullshit. The child orders did not receive the short sale order mark of the parent order due to the missing line of code, unquote. So why are we being fined $3 million? We didn't do anything wrong. What's the fine for? These alleged errors, they didn't really happen, violated regulations show and FINRA rules relating to the filing accurate trade reports and maintaining accurate order memoranda. The firm was also faulted. You can't find fault at Goldman. These are honorable men, providing America with a service. The firm was also faulted for failing to supervise its trading system, leading to the inaccurate execution of nearly 7.9 million orders. 7.9 million orders. These were all child tickets, though. If FINRA kept a record of this, they would probably have it down as parent tickets. But the fact is they were child tickets. And it only happened because Goldman inadvertently failed to include a single line of code. You know, all those dark-skinned people that go in and steal from 7-Eleven stores or from Duane Reade stores, and they do it a third time, third strike, you're out? Well, we're a bunch of honkies. We're a bunch of honkies, went to the right schools, and we went into the 7-Eleven or the Duane Reade store 7.9 million times. But hey, we got lawyers, and we're just like you. We're honorable men. We are honorable men. And it was inadvertent. We're wealthy. We have hot chicks as our wives. We have hot cars as our rides. We have hot jets to fly around the world. This was inadvertent. What? We didn't need more money. We're already rich. We're rich already. Those people in Duane Reade, they need medicine for their children. They need laundry soap they can't afford. They need food even for their children. Pauvre Jean Valjean. But hey, it's inadvertent on the part of Goldman Sachs. It's inadvertent. Remember that. We didn't enter 7.9 million shares for an average, I don't know, let's make it up. What do you think? 10,000 shares an order? 100,000 shares an order? Let's just do it at 10,000 shares an order. 7.9 times 10,000 shares an order. We didn't sell 79 billion shares short. Don't you accuse us of that. Naked short, marked long. We didn't do it intentionally. Not Goldman Sachs. We're honorable men. Honorable men. We're white men. We went to the right schools, and we've got the right attorneys. Please, and we control FINRA. Please do not charge us with crimes. Society is unsafe by people out there either addicted to drugs in a cycle downward, or they can't provide for their family. Go arrest them and put them in prison. And by the way, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley owns a lot of those prisons. And by the way, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley issue those cards for welfare benefits, and they get a piece of every bit of that. We are honorable men. 3 strikes, Bill Clinton. 3 strikes, Joe Biden. 3 strikes, Hillary Clinton. Destroyed brown families all over the United States for 2 or 3 generations. But hey, we're Democrats. We're on the side of the poor working class man. But don't you ever say that Goldman Sachs did anything wrong when not strike one, not strike two, not strike three, they sold 70, maybe, might be more, 79 billion shares because they inadvertently failed to include a single line of code. Don't you ever question Goldman Sachs. And don't question the FINRA data. Or don't trust the FINRA data on short sales. Don't question the people that sell. When they sell short marked long, when they sell naked marked wrong, don't question them. These are good people. They're just trying to raise families. These alleged errors violated regulations show in FINRA rules relating to filing accurate trade reports and maintaining accurate order memoranda. The firm was also faulted for failing to supervise its trading system. Hey, it's just a computer. We were busy. Leading to the inaccurate execution of nearly 7.9 million orders and more than 2 million trade reports submitted to FINRA. Those are the end of the day reports. 2 million trade reports submitted to FINRA. 2 million trade reports. Hey, we're honkies. We're not criminals. It's just a mistake. My bad. How much do you need? How much do you need? 3 million? 3 million? Well, let me write a check. Compliance considerations. Goldman Sachs was alerted to the alleged deficiencies regarding its trading software by FINRA in April 2018. It was just a deficiency in software. It went on for 3 years. 100 billion shares sold. McDonald's sells more burgers than that. Why should you be worried with us? It's just an innocent mistake. The firm immediately fixed the coding error according to FINRA, which is, as I put on Twitter, currently has a senior partner at Goldman Sachs, currently works on the board of FINRA. Goldman Sachs also corrected an error regarding its logic system for selling orders routed to the firm by foreign affiliates. Hey, there's nothing going wrong from offshore. Not with Goldman. You got to remember, these are honorable men. Honorable men, these Goldman guys. Added additional controls designed to detect and prevent the routing of inaccurately marked short sale orders according to FINRA. So the data that FINRA puts up and then that OTC short report collects doesn't take into account the fact that, hey, it's just a coding error. It's just a coding error. It went on for 100 billion shares, but hey, you can't blame us. We're just trying to make a living. It's hard out there. Let me just look one other thing up. I'm not going to open the PDF, but I'll see if I can read it. It's very small. Goldman Sachs reports earnings per common share of $30.02 for 2022, and fourth quarter earnings per common share was $3.32. Against a challenging economic backdrop, we continued to rob the American it doesn't say that. We delivered double-digit returns for our shareholders in 2022. Our clear near-term focus is to continue to sell stock short that doesn't... it doesn't say that. Near-term focus is realizing the benefits of our strategic realignment, which will strengthen our core businesses, scale our growth platforms, and improve efficiency. The foundation of all our strategic efforts is our client franchise, which is second to none. David Solomon, Chief Executive Officer and Chairman. For 2022, Goldman Sachs net revenues, $47.37 billion. Net earnings, $11.26 billion. Book value per share, $303. Hey, what do you need, $3 million? It was inadvertent. We're not criminals. We're the honest men at Goldman Sachs, and you need us. Boy, do you need us. Imagine a world without Goldman Sachs or Credit Suisse. Imagine that world. I can't think of a single thing you'd miss out on if Goldman Sachs didn't exist. Not a single thing. Well, anyway, let me look at the price. The stock is 141 to 142. The volume today is 505,000 shares. That selling that's coming in today isn't short selling, and FINRA's wrong. It's balanced trading that's matched probably by offshore accounts, and probably some of you are selling, and maybe if you don't have GTC orders in place, maybe the Kramers are actually borrowing stock from us to sell because they know the stock is both worth less and worthless. By the time they're going to be done with any stock, it'll be worthless. So 141 to 142. I guess we just have to operate in the blind. We can't trust even the data that's provided by FINRA. There's Right now on the ask, 7,046 shares for on offer. Of course, when the Kramers sell, they don't sell in blocks. They sell 7,046 shares because that's normal. There's 304 shares. 4 shares times $1.41, $5. Someone's not buying 300 shares. They're buying 304. This isn't market manipulation that you're seeing. Don't you think that. If you go to another site that you cannot trust, OTC Markets, and you put in GTII, just remember, what you're seeing with your eyes, can't trust it. What's really going on is in the American markets, the United States markets, it's the highest amount of integrity, the best markets in the world, providing liquidity for you. Don't question it. Just do not question it. I don't know, there's something slow going on with my... I just think I'll take it off of Wi-Fi altogether. Okay. These are the bids. These are all honorable guys. OTCN 141, they're trying to buy 104 shares. That's not communication. That's not communication to one of the other criminals. Oh, and they're not criminal. Saying, hey, we'll cover your short if you shorted here, or whatever the code means. 104. And here's Knight down there. They have 3,280 shares to buy. Let's see how much money that is. 3,280. It's very logical. 3,280 times 1.41. Hey, it's such a perfect number. Everyone invests when they have to invest. I don't invest often, but when I invest $4,624.80. Come on. This is all fraud. But don't believe your eyes. Do not believe your eyes. Do not make any assumptions. There's an explanation for all of this. Now on the ask, look at Knight. Look at Knight. They're selling 6,546 shares at 142. Because when I sell, I don't sell 7,000 shares. I don't sell 6,500 shares. I sell 6,046 shares. I'm not communicating with other market makers. Oh, no, not me. I'm not participating in fraud. I'm not selling shares that do not exist. Don't believe those numbers from FINRA. Don't believe them. It doesn't take into account the fact that OTCN, NITE, CDL, EL, GTSM, INTL, ETRF, CSTI, Puma, Vert, all crap firms, doesn't take into account that all we're doing all day is moving the stock amongst ourselves, driving it down, and we're sharing a code, and we're taking money out. But hey, we're not criminals. We're not criminals. The data reported to FINRA doesn't reflect the fact that when OTCN has a client selling shares naked that don't exist, maybe ETRF has a client buying those same fictitious shares by shorting fictitious shares, and then maybe GTSM comes in and buys that fictitious short so that the client at OTCN and the client at ETRF can strip capital out of the money, stealing it from you. No more brazenly than those people that go into Dwayne Reed to steal razor blades and laundry soap. But those people go to prison because they've done it 3 times. But don't question these people. The data, it doesn't reflect the buybacks. So don't question it. Anyway, let's see where the stock is now. 141 to 142. I wanted to talk about MMTLP's judge saying that, so I don't know where to find it. Here, Richard Hoffman. Okay, Richard Hoffman on MMTLP's third amended complaint, adding new data from 316 Fuke and 3/3 of FOIA reply will be filed with court this week. Yes, see new paragraphs. Robert Cook and Gary Gensler, who I love this guy, who I see as destructive scumbags. I love this guy. Are prominently recognized for their contributions to the criminality. I'm going to retweet that. I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Let me see what else he had to say today. Oh, I'm not following him? Why am I not following him? Now I am. Richard Hoffman. I spoke with Tom Nash today, who has a sizable YouTube channel about MMTLP. Please go follow him. Gary Gensler, stop stonewalling. Dear Mr. Gensler, under your supervision, your office intentionally screwed retail investors. Disturbingly, you have not denied the allegations. But guys, don't, please. There are explanations for all of this. There are explanations. Don't start thinking that there's a large naked short position in GTII. It all makes sense. There's no stock that the Kramers ever had after February of 2021. They didn't have any shares. They just simply were there able to buy every stock you bought. They borrowed from you. They borrowed it from you. They didn't have anything to sell, but they were able to borrow it from you. So don't worry about there being a big naked short position. It's clear everything's kosher. This guy Richard Hoffman is great. All right, so I'm following him now. But my understanding is that the judge required a count of all the shares out there in the... So who was that lawyer? That was Rosa. Let me look. Not Rosa? So maybe it's not Rosa. I follow not Rosa, and it says Rosa Tawil. So I don't know why she said not Rosa. Dunya. I got to remember what Dunya means. It means Dunya. Can't remember. Dunya. I don't know that Rosa, not Rosa, Rosa is the correct Rosa. but it's the only Rosa I have. Anyway, all right, let's look at the price again. Yeah, I think it's great. Kurt Kramer is clearly shorting a stock that's, probably worth nothing. And he's doing us, the system, a favor, cleansing the market of promoters and people that don't know what they're investing in. And you got to give credit for these two boys from Great Clam, New York. They're just trying to make a living. They're just good boys. They got family. Don't worry about it. They got family. And they, like laser, they focus on stocks that shouldn't go up. They focus on stocks that shouldn't exist. They focus on technology, management teams, medical companies, defense contractors, healthcare. Any company out there that's under $5 and needs money shouldn't exist. So these avenging angels protect us from overinflated stock prices. And they do it, they don't require much. They just strip the entire market cap of these companies to their side of the table. Hey, they deserve it because they get to see ahead of all of you. The companies shouldn't exist. They take hundreds of millions, if not billions, if not trillions of dollars out of the market. But hey, it's perfectly normal. Perfectly normal. Nothing wrong. In the case of GTII, they've borrowed the shares. They've located the shares. It's clear that FINRA data that adds up to over 300 million shares is wrong. It doesn't take into account any of the buybacks that happen offshore or in dark pools. It doesn't take into account what good men the Kramers are. Doesn't take into account how good Alpine is. And you know what they're doing? They're protecting the United States from the scourge of dishonest CEOs. They're a one group wrecking ball keeping America safe for you and for investors. So anyway, it's 137 to 138. No volume, but it's down because when you want to sell, the best thing to do is drive the price down. When you've got stock to sell, drive it down. That's the best way to get it filled. 137, 138. And on 138, there's 7,313 shares for sale. Nothing to see here, guys. You just don't know. There's someone on the other side. That's legitimately borrowed shares. They borrowed it from you. You don't know. They borrowed it from one of the whales. You don't know. One of those stupid whales that invested in GTII. They didn't put GTC orders in. They didn't tell their broker, don't lend out my shares. So that's probably what it is. Kurt Kramer is able to borrow from Tommy Wang. That's what it is. That's where the supply's coming from. I got it. I got it now. So those FINRA data is all wrong. $1.35, $1.36. The bid right now is 12,680 shares. I don't think that's suspicious. When I buy, I don't often invest, but when I invest, I buy 12,685 shares at a time. Now someone supposedly filled out that order, but it isn't reflected in the volume. And now we're 136 to 138. There's nothing suspicious going on here. And Today there's nothing suspicious. Yesterday there was nothing suspicious. The day before, and every day for 2.5 years. You cannot believe the data that OTC Short Report has collected from FINRA sources. This is all perfectly normal, and the stock should be 5 cents. I mean, why should the stock be $1.36? Why should it be $2? Why should it be $8.97? What does the stock have? $136, $138. I'll tell you what GTII has. It's got, in my judgment, I've just explained to you why I'm wrong. But in my judgment, they have between 325 million counterfeit shares sold to as high as 500 million. 500 million. 500 million shares. Oh, well, the Kramers don't do that. Oh, yes, they do. Go look at SEC filings against the Kramers. Go look at companies that have sued the Kramers. They always sell in hundreds of millions of shares because they want to seller box this stock. But hey, it should be down there. It's a useless company, just like HPIL, just like GTLL, just like endless number of companies that they held. There was an energy company out of Texas. When Kurt Kramer signs up companies, they make an announcement, and Charlie Mayo, Kurt Kramer are pleased to help the company grow. But as soon as they're signed up, all of a sudden the company doesn't deserve to exist. All the due diligence that Kurt Kramer did to sign the company up becomes obsolete as soon as the company's signed up. And then the companies, Kurt Kramer's doing you a favor, getting rid of these illegitimate companies, because the only sources of capital formation which Goldman Sachs CEO partner Gary Gensler prominently puts or former partner prominently puts on his SEC website that the United States markets are here for capital formation. The only company that should be a source of capital formation is Goldman Sachs and the 4 or 5 other bulge bracket brokerage firms, the big firms. And maybe some of the hedge funds that they seed. But you should not have an organically grown over-the-counter market. No way. And the data is wrong. Just remember that. The data is wrong. So what I tell you is wrong. But GTII, in my judgment, has a massive short problem. Why do I say that? Because if these criminals, oh no, they're not criminals. They're just implementing a business plan, and they're just strategically borrowing stock to sell it downward because they're taking the risks. You're not. Okay, they're not criminals. They're not criminals. In GTII, everything's on the up and up. But to me, there's 325 million shares that have been created out of thin air. Number one, they got to all be bought back. Number two, Alpine is in trouble because in the court documents, it states in court. But you can't trust what they put in court either. 139 to 140, down 10 cents. Since I've been on the phone with you, it's about 40, maybe 30,000 shares have traded, but they've gotten it down further to $1.39. I give my congratulations to Kurt Kramer. And, you know, the fact that he's been able to locate shares to sell, we don't know. Borrowed it from you guys. There might be a massive pool of stock in Germany we don't know about. This is all legitimate. The FINRA data is false. You can't count on it. Can never find what I need right away. But they're in court. In court, the DTCC, you can't trust them either, and the NSCC, you can't trust them. They stated that Alpine was deficient because, here's this it? Yeah, here it is. You can't trust this. This is filed in court, but do not trust it. Alpine sought an expedited stay because NSCC informed it that the charge would be effective November 1, 2022. NSCC informed Alpine that deficiencies it observed, the NSCC, observed in September 2022 caused Alpine to fall below the backtesting target, and it, the NSCC, you can't trust the NSCC, don't trust them, it attributed the deficiencies to Alpine's, quote, net short portfolios. But don't trust them, don't trust these records. What Kurt Kramer is doing with his brother Seth, with the efforts of Alpine, are all on the up and up. Why? They're like Goldman Sachs. They're honorable men. Come on, lay off of these men. They're just trying to make a living. They're just two young guys from Great Clam, New York. So the NSCC attributed the deficiencies to Alpine's, quote, net short portfolios, with the top driver being a concentrated short position in GTII, unquote. This was filed by the NSCC. It was filed by the DTCC. But it's unreliable. It's based on data they must have gotten from FINRA. And you can't trust that data because Kurt Kramer, Seth Kramer, Charlie Mayo, Alpine, John Hurry, and all of the other opportunistic short sellers in GTII, they're selling located shares. They found them. They found them in Germany or in Panama, somewhere. They found them. It's just the record keeping by FINRA that's wrong. And if you add up all the days over the last 2.5 years, that's not the way to do it, because that doesn't take into account the stock they bought back. Well, I haven't seen. I've watched it every single day. I saw one day where the stock went from $1 something to $3, and it was maybe 100,000 shares that drove it up. This one day I saw it as short buying. I haven't seen any short covering, but I can't trust my own eyes. I can't trust my own eyes. You cannot trust the FINRA data. You can't trust the OTC short report. You cannot trust the filings made by the NSCC and the DTCC against Alpine, stating that Alpine is deficient because of a concentrated short position in GTII. Don't trust any of that. Remember, these are honorable men. These are two boys from Great Clam, New York. They're just trying to raise their family, and nobody FUXs with them. Nobody. But they're kind-hearted people. Frank Benedetto, he knows Kurt Kramer. As Frank said, Kurt Kramer would never speak ill of anyone on Twitter. That's not the Kurt Kramer that Frank knows. These are good people. They're honorable people. So I'm here to tell you that the entire investment thesis that I've given you on GTII must be wrong. These are honorable men. The data's wrong. What we've seen with our eyes for the last 2.5 years is wrong. And what does GTII have? GTII has several divisions. But what do they add up to? GTII is going to merge into 1-800 law firm, but when? GTII potentially could become a $15 to $20 billion lithium mine out of Chile. But when? Keep hearing about these things, but they never happen. You've got a CEO who purchased stock in GTII, which locks up his whole position for 12 months. But hey, what was he thinking? He's also Reichman, Frank Benedetto, and a couple of others are selling 1% or some small percentage of their position in the stock every month. So obviously, it's worthless. Obviously, it's worthless. They're selling 1% a month. They have cash on their books, but not much. So, hey. They've announced a special dividend that's going to be restricted shares with a record date of the 15th of April, which is designed to catch out the shorts. But remember, attorney Mark Belisle, he doesn't much believe in special dividends. He doesn't. It's a starting point. But what does it really do? It just gives you a basis for, maybe for how many shares have been sold short. But it's not going to be effective according to attorney Mark Belisle. So that's not going to work. That's not going to work. They are trying to list dual listing on Upstream, but apparently they've been moved to the back of the burner because Upstream's more aggressively going after companies in the CEO block. Well, that makes sense. Upstream needs customers, and they've already locked in GTII. But clearly, that's probably going nowhere. You've got whale investors in GTII, but they didn't do any of their due diligence, and they're not going to be there to make sure that the stock goes up. So that's probably not a reason to be in GTII. The company was called by Charlie Mayo a la Cosmo Health. Hey, Reiki, I've had a talk with the boys. We're ready with some numbers. If you want to talk, let's talk. In other words, we'll give you the cash we stripped from your investors in the open market, but we're honorable men. We are honorable men. We're just trying. I, Charlie Mayo, have a white fetish. I buy white luxury automobiles. But hey, it's just the rewards of being good men. We protect the public. We're here to protect the public. So Reiki, we got the cash we stripped out of the market from your stock at higher prices because we're protecting the public, remember. But we're ready to give you some of that money back to lock in our profit, lock in our spread, if you issue new shares to us and dilute the crapola out of your company's stock, a la COSM, a la many companies out there. But Reiki didn't do it. I guess it's because Reiki's an idiot. So we shouldn't play GTII for a short squeeze because Reiki's an idiot. He should have taken the money from Charlie Mayo. Reiki's been offered money from other short sellers and other smiling faces who represent, they're fronting for the short sellers over the last 2 years. Never taken a single deal. Other companies do. Why doesn't he? What an odd duck he is. What an odd duck. We can't trust him. Other companies go out and they take the money. Oh, sure, it dilutes the stock, but at least the company has cash. But Reiki's not doing that, so we shouldn't trust that the short squeeze story in GTII isn't going to work. We're the odd man out. We should fit in with the rest of the CEOs. And the other thing that GTII doesn't do, they don't hire the Belial law firm, Mark Belial law firm, like HPIL did. So the law firm can go after the Kramers and amicably settle. And so the Kramers just give the warrants back. They don't have to cover the alleged short position. It's just alleged. It's not really out there. Hey, they just borrowed money. They just borrowed shares from the whales without the whales realizing it. So then you got HPIL settles. You can look it up. HPIL hired Mark Belial law firm settles with the Kramers amicably. And they're all pleased on all sides. Attaboy, great, feels good. You can look up the stock. 0.0000000001. It makes you wonder who's working with the shorts. But I'm not going to wonder that. I'm going to just point out that when you settle with the shorts, they scream to you, don't throw me in the briar patch. It's just where they want to be. But, hey, GTII doesn't hire Mark Belial. All GTII does is issue special dividends. And Mark Belial, he posted it yesterday. He's never thought that works. And he's not a spokesman for the shorts. He's a guy that's had a lot of experience trading and risking money in the markets. That's who he is. So he's never thought that really works. And the evidence is there. He can sue the company, the Kramers, and get an amicable settlement. The history's there. But Reiki doesn't want to hire them. So that really makes me question the GTII story. Now, Reiki has hired West Christian. But what does West Christian know? I mean, West Christian is chasing ghosts. He's after the windmills. He's there. He's looking for data on naked short selling in GTII. We know that the FINRA data is inaccurate. And we know that probably Kurt Kramer was able to borrow the shares from the whales themselves without them knowing. Or there's shares offshore. The data doesn't take all that into account. So what's West Christian doing? Suing and subpoenaing market makers and broker dealers and prime brokers and FINRA itself. He must be off his rocker. What GTII needs to do is hire Mark Belial so they can amicably settle with the Kramers. You've got to get off this West Christian crap. So that's another reason we probably shouldn't be in GTII. GTII management has never shown an inclination to dilute the shares. They've never shown an inclination to sell shares ahead of you. In fact, the CEO bought shares. They've never shown an inclination to raise money from the short sellers, well, alleged short sellers, or the fronters for the short sellers. There must be something wrong with this GTII story. Why wouldn't they do that? No, I'm convinced. The more I look at it, I'm convinced GTII is a stock we shouldn't be in. This alleged naked short position of 350 million shares. This alleged management team that looks out for you, the investors, instead of themselves. This alleged strategy of issuing special dividends to catch out the street. This alleged short seller lawyer Wes Christian's strategy of discovery. This alleged Alpine group going out of business because the NSCC went after them. This alleged acquisition of 1-800 law firm. I mean, they only have $100 million in backlog revenue. This alleged project that they've been working on for over almost 2 years, Trento Mines, lithium mine out of Chile, that could instantaneously make it a multi-billion-dollar company. It's all alleged. It's all alleged. The 300 million shares that you and I bought of GTII were just borrowed shares, legitimately located borrowed shares from each other. We just borrowed the shares each of us are buying. It's all legit. So what the hell are we in this stock for? Someone just sent me a GTII chart. See? It's not going to go any lower. So it closed at 142, I guess. And that is a support, that is a trend line. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down days. I think. It's very hard to read. Let me see. Well, there's one down day and then a green day, but starting after that, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down days. 6 down days. All manipulated, but hey, I'm wrong. You got to remember, I'm not giving you good advice. I'm wrong. The FINRA data is wrong. My eyes are wrong. The patterns I see are wrong. The Kramers are honorable men. Alpine is just fulfilling a role that Goldman Sachs itself would fulfill if it could. But the markets are so deep and so honest in the United States that there's a place for people like John Hurry and Alpine Securities. There's a place for honorable avenging angels like Kurt and Seth Kramer. Their mother is so proud of them, the work they do. I mean, Kurt Kramer worked all of a year and a half on Wall Street, and he worked at 4 different firms. Imagine the things he learned in those year and a half, 2 years on Wall Street. That guy, he's a bloody genius. He gleaned more off of Wall Street in 2 years than most men get in a lifetime on Wall Street. So he immediately was able to use his well-trained eyes Don't listen to me. There's other people out there that are just as insane as I am. Filed in 2017. But remember, Goldman Sachs, it was a line of code from 2015 to 2018. Just an innocent mistake. So, Kurt Kramer under the guise of Asher Enterprises. He's the CEO and president of Asher Enterprises. Its principal, Kurt Kramer. You know, FINRA classified Kurt Kramer as a bad actor. There it is, bad actor. But you can't trust that. It's unfair. It's unfair to take this information and believe it's true. It's just unfair. It doesn't take into account all the facts. That was a company called EcoloCap Solutions. But hey, Kurt Kramer, with his wisdom and his eye, he knew that that company should be destroyed. Oh, Asher Enterprises, Kurt Kramer is a toxic lender. It loans. This is a filing made by Digital Brands Media and Marketing Group, DBMM. But hey, they're as crazy as I am. They're looking at data and evidence and experience. They're coming to the wrong conclusions. The fact is that FINRA doesn't have the facts, nor do the courts. The trading patterns, can't trust them. Remember, Kurt Kramer is an honorable man. Alpine is an honorable organization. And if there's been a mistake, hey, it's just a mistake. It's inadvertent. So, item 3, Asher Enterprises is a toxic lender. I'll read it down here. It loans issuers monies and takes convertible instruments. This is Kurt Kramer. Let me go back up and repeat it. Asher Enterprises, its principal, Kurt Kramer. Okay, now we'll go back down. Kurt Kramer is a toxic lender. He loans issuers money and takes convertible instruments and then proceeds to relentlessly convert shares materially discounted below market price to perpetually sell at a profit and ever decrease the share price, because no matter how low the stock price goes, Asher is always selling well below its cost basis. The share price can never go up with the selling pressure. And Asher never stops. Kurt Kramer never stops. But hey, remember, the FINRA data is wrong. Kurt Kramer is legitimately borrowing the shares, probably from you. You don't know. Well, anyway, I'm not going to read the rest of it. So, guys, I'm going to end early today because I'm frustrated with the feedback I get, and I'm a little bit on shaky grounds. I do not intend to mislead you on what I think is going on in GTII, MMTLP, and other stocks, including Logic, GoLogic, CLNV, CRTD. The data sources are opaque. The data sources are hidden. it is my opinion that on a grand scale, starting with Goldman Sachs, going all the way down to Kurt Kramer, Wall Street steals from you. And they do it by codifying, or by looking the other way, a so-called business model, which means creating shares out of thin air, selling them endlessly. It destroys American companies. And the argument that I don't know, that there might be a dark pool or the shares might be borrowed from the very people buying the shares, I can't prove is wrong. I can't prove that argument is wrong. It is so twisted, so systemic. It gets you lost in the arguments of, oh my gosh, maybe Kurt Kramer is a genius. The hundreds of companies he's destroyed, he's done it all legitimately. And when Patrick Byrne says that 75% of Goldman Sachs' revenue comes from the stock loan desk, the securities loan desk, and 76% of that comes from the hard to borrow, in other words, it created out of thin air. And remember, Goldman Sachs invented the F3 button, which gets around reg shows locate requirements. But these are all honorable people. It's me that's crazy. I'm the one that's crazy. I'm the one that's not giving you the truth. I think you have to be careful. Maybe, I want to be perfectly clear, maybe the short position in GTII, the short position, the counterfeit shares, the crime, maybe it's much less than 350 million. Maybe it's only 10 million and all this trading has been legitimate. I don't know. Why can't I know? Because Gary Gensler, the Popinjay, the putative chairman of CEO of the SEC, putative. He's actually just in there warming the seat for Goldman Sachs, in my judgment. And then the lard-ass Robert Cook. That's probably going to, my saying that's going to make him shut down FINRA for the week because he's afraid of violent attacks. But I tell you what, if I can't trust data that's collected by FINRA, and thereby I'm giving you information, and then I'm wrong, I've got to rethink what I'm doing. Just to be clear, I believe that Kurt Kramer is a criminal. I believe Alpine is a criminal organization. I believe there's been a massive counterfeiting of stock in GTII. Somewhere between 325 million to over 500 million shares. I believe that that is congruent with the modus operandi of Kurt Kramer, specifically. He's such a control freak, he leaves his name on top of every LLC. I believe that Kurt Kramer has lost cases in New York for usury lending, so he's moved here to Alexandria, Virginia. I believe that Kurt Kramer has murdered dozens of companies for his own self-interest. I think he's a liar and a fraud and a despicable human being. I think you have been disadvantaged. And I think the FINRA data is correct in large part. I think in the case of GTII, there's one idiot trapped short, and then a desperate prime broker that might have brought in some other people. I believe that GTII paid other individuals to come get us out of the stock. That's what I believe. I can't prove it. But there's a lot of money here at risk. I believe there's an honorable man, an honorable father, fighting for GTII. I think there's an army, a GTI army, of many people that have been invested in this stock from the beginning that are all honorable and hardworking. I think now the MMTLP army is working with GTI and vice versa, and we're uncovering massive rot in the United States security system. But I got to tell you, and I think there's a series of events that are coming to catch out the system in GTII. I won't bore you with those. But I got to tell you, it's unnerving. It is unnerving for me to hear that the data, I counted the data from FINRA since September. It's 150 million shares, roughly, that FINRA reports as short. But to be told that that data is inaccurate because it doesn't count offshore shares. Where? From where? But there might be shares offshore. From where? They made those up. They made those up too. It might not count the fact that the stock has been legitimately borrowed from Tommy Wang or from you, because you were such idiots you didn't put in GTC orders or tell your brokerage firms not to lend out your stock. So when I'm told that the data is wrong and may not be true at all, it makes me wonder if I'm serving you correctly or if I'm missing something. I don't think I am. I believe there are over 300 million shares that have to be bought back in GTII. I believe there were 50 million from the get-go. I believe that over the last 2 years, the idiot, lying, vicious man that is Kurt Kramer, no less vicious than someone that comes and robs you in your home with a gun. I think he has orchestrated the creation out of thin air of securities fraud shares to the tune of 300 million shares since the 50 million was not extant in the first place. So it is my belief that we're on a powder keg that's going to explode to much higher numbers based on the fact that 350 million non-existent shares are stuffed in your accounts and have to be bought back. But when I'm told the data from FINRA is wrong, I got to tell you it's unnerving. I'm gonna try to do some videos either tonight or tomorrow. I haven't read a single one of your inputs today, and I'm not going to right now. I am, I guess, worn out, but I'm not going to quit. I am deeply unnerved by being told that predicates for my recommendation, which isn't financial advice to you, are all wrong. Based on faulty data. It really makes me wonder what I'm doing. I will reiterate, I believe GTII is a powder keg ready to explode to the upside. I haven't sold shares and then bought back, sold, bought, the way a lot of people have. Why? Because when it's up, I think when it went to 240 last week, 235, whatever it was, I didn't sell because I think the biggest risk is that the buy-in is going to come and the stock will be $100. I didn't short stock because I didn't get into GTII because it had the next technology or the best thing since sliced bread. All I knew, it had a massive idiotic short position that had to be covered. Well, if you take away that predicate and you tell me that all the data from FINRA is wrong, what do we have in this country? What do we have? What financial system do we have? Anyway, I'm going to take a break tonight. I might do a video later, maybe. I'm going to take a break tonight, and I may not come back on tomorrow. In fact, I'm going to say that right now. I'm not going to come on tomorrow, and I may not come on Friday. So I'm sorry for my diatribe. But I believe 100% in GTII. I believe the information I have given you is correct. I've been told the information is incorrect. I have to digest that. But I think the stock. I've tried, in a very sarcastic way, perhaps, to expose to you the reasons the data may be incorrect, so that you can process that information too. But I remain convinced that sometime in the next 30 days or sooner, we could have reasons that cause GTII not only to go up a little bit, not only to go to 250, and I should be telling you to lighten up, but to go to 5 and 6 and 7, and then go to a tipping point, which means the stock goes to 30, 80, 144, 250. So I'm sorry for my mood. I'm sorry for my tone. And I want you to know I 100% personally believe in the story behind GTII, that Kurt Kramer is a criminal in my judgment, Alpine's a criminal, and when Alpine goes down, every single piece of this stock that has been criminally created out of thin air is going to have to be bought back. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to wish you the best. And I think I'm going to stay off the air until after Good Friday, maybe after Easter. I feel like I'm not adding anything anymore, and if the information that comes from FINRA is wrong, well, then I better be careful when I open my mouth. And that makes the criminals win. If I don't speak, the criminals win. The one thing I've offered to you guys is I speak my mind. I haven't lied to you. Although I am willing to lie. If a woman comes in and she just got her hair cut, I'm going to tell her that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, even if she got a crew cut, you know. So I'm not a perfect person. But I've tried to give honest recommendation. But when the criminals can take over FINRA, and even the data that FINRA gives doesn't take into account this mysterious shares that might be in Germany, or mysterious ability to borrow shares from Tommy Wang or other whales, so that everything in the stock price is correct, and Kurt Kramer is accurately seeing that GTII should be trading at 5 cents. But I'm not saying it's not going to work, but it's saying it should be trading at 5 cents. And you can't give credibility to the 1-800 law firm or to the mining deal. I've got to rethink my approach. So I'm gonna take that personal privilege and stay off the air, possibly through Easter, but certainly through Good Friday. And I'm going to pray on it, because I don't know what else to do but ask for a little bit of guidance. I'm not one of those people that hear things from above, but maybe I can get some internal wisdom. I've never seen a bigger monstrosity than the United States securities system. When Goldman Sachs can defraud the American people and turn to the taxpayer to be rescued. When Kurt Kramer can defraud the American people and say, hey, wait a minute, the FINRA data is wrong. And how do you know I'm not legitimately borrowing the shares? Kurt Kramer, know that every client I sign up should be destroyed by me. Because once I sign them up, and 100 companies, they're all dead because of me. Because once I signed them up, I looked under the hood and I find out they didn't deserve to exist. And then the system that's charged with reporting the data, you can't even trust that data. What the hell am I doing? What the hell am I doing? Just remember that Solomon, Blankfein, the other guy with the bald head, the football player, the CEOs of Goldman, they're all honorable men. Jamie Dimon, honorable man. Ken Griffin, honorable man. Kurt Kramer is just one in a long line of honorable men. Alpine John Hurry, honorable. Me, I'm misreading it all. And I'm giving you advice that's wrong. When the stock goes up, you should be selling. Obviously, it's only worth 5 cents. Obviously, the data that shows that there's 325 million, 350 million shares created out of thin air is all wrong. So what am I doing? I got to take time and think about that. So anyway, I wish everyone happy Easter and blessings. Those that are celebrating Ramadan, I wish you all the blessings. Those that are celebrating, I think, Passover, I'm a little confused on the timing. I wish all the blessings on their families. Those that don't celebrate in that way, I wish all the blessings. And I say peace, love, and happiness. Ciao.